You know, I was working up here last week and another of the allotmenteers stopped by for a chat and made a joke that everyone who watches my YouTube channel must think that the Isle of Man is always sunny because I always take videos when it is sunny for obvious reasons. And then shortly after that, it started raining and then the wind started. And then for the past 4 days, the entire island has been whipped by winds and we've had an absolute deluge of rain and it has just been pouring down up until late last night. Now that same allotmenteer got in touch with me, sent me a message and said that I needed to come up and have a look at my bean structure. And so today dawned bright and beautiful, perfect for taking a video. And so we're gonna come up and have a look to see what the damage is, see what I've been doing here at the allotment. And I'm also going to be sharing a little bit of what's happening in the home garden as well. But first, let's go have a look at that bean structure. Well, he wasn't joking. And my beautiful bean structure that had the achoka and the French beans and the runner beans is now leaning against the blackberry trellis. Wow. I'm not sure how I'm going to sort this out. Let's have a little bit of a closer look though. Well, the positive thing is that I can see some of my squash a bit better, and they are all growing really well over here. And I can see lots of beans that I can pick today. Runner beans, French beans back here. But I do not know what I'm going to do about this. Oh look, we've got an achoka or achocha growing here as well. I need to do something to salvage this. I think I'm going to try to put it back together and see if the plants will survive that, because otherwise it's just going to be a case of having to take everything down. Got it propped up, but it just keeps falling apart, and I'm convinced it's because of the weight of all the beans. So what I'm going to do now is pick all of the beans off of the plants and then see if that helps in getting this structure a little bit more stable. Was a bit of work. So after taking all of these French beans and the runner beans off of the vines, I was able to get it back up vertical, put all of the pieces together, and then I've had to put in this piece of wood to help support the top. Now the top seems to be the weakest point here because of all the weight on the top of all of the beans. So I've used some baling twine on either side to hold this in place because it's just popping off continuously. And then that stake in the center is holding it up as well. And it seems pretty sturdy right now. I've also put these guys in to different holes, so just basically ram them in. And it's better than I actually thought I would be able to do. I was about ready to give up at one point. It was just so daunting, and really this could have used 2 people to put it back together again. I am so relieved that the bean structure is salvaged. And it seems sturdy enough, but if it can stand up another month or two before I can get a few more harvests off of it and take it down for the winter, then I'll be happy. And then next year when I put it back up again, I might actually put it up in the home garden, which is a little bit more sheltered, and then stick with the bean teepees that seem to do a lot better in really exposed places like our allotment here. So while I was fixing the bean structure and picking beans, I also noticed quite a few other things peeping out at me from behind leaves. And there are cabbage, there are patty pan squash, and there are berries, amongst other things, no doubt, that I can pick right now to take home. So let's go and harvest some things for dinner. This butterfly netting has been doing its job in protecting the cabbages in here, but it hasn't stopped weeds from growing in here, which I do need to tackle. And I'm going to mulch all of this again. And I have some overwintering cabbages that I'm growing on in the greenhouse right now, and I'm going to put them in here next. And so I need to clear some space. And fortunately, there are a few cabbages ready to go. And these are the golden acre cabbages that I like to grow. They're quite petite. And I'm just gonna snip them down here at the base. Really good size. And all of those damaged leaves can be peeled off, and there's a really nice head of cabbage just waiting inside there. And there's a couple more that I'll take as well. Let's now add a few patty pan squash to the trug. And this year I'm growing quite a few different squash because I'm growing a lot of different things up here at the allotment that are low maintenance and can really sort themselves out. And there's some, I think, tonda squash down here and the baked potato squash. And this big bushy thing is a patty pan squash. And you can harvest these young and use them in the same way as courgettes or zucchini, or you can leave them to grow really big and then the skin will toughen a bit and then they're a bit more like the typical squash that you would harvest in autumn. Let's take some of these baby ones though, and they'll make a really nice stir fry or veggie lasagna in the next couple of days. There's a lovely one. And if you hear any squawking in the background, there's a baby bird of prey. I don't know what type it is, but it's flying around the skies here at the allotment. We've been spotting it the last couple of weeks, and the parents we think might be over in the plantation over there, but it really is a good sign of the ecology around here, that there's plenty of food for birds of prey and that they're able to survive. I would say that that is a precursor to the storms to come. Oh dear. This has been quite a wild year for weather and other things, obviously. And gardening isn't all about just blue skies and beautiful harvests, as we just saw with the bean structure. And another thing that has happened here at the allotment garden is that all of my main crop potatoes have been infected with blight. Now what I've done is I've removed all of the affected foliage. It's in those black bags right there, and I will be taking those to the tip and not to the green waste bin. These are going straight into the burnable household waste because the foliage is affected with blight and it can persist from year to year. And the potatoes are still in the ground, and I'm going to leave them there another week before digging them up. And if they've survived in the ground this far, they will have toughened up a little bit. They won't have blight, hopefully, and I can take them home and store them for at least a little bit. If you've ever wondered what this monstrosity is on the other side of my plot, this was another plot. It didn't belong to me, but the person who had it got a really bad infestation of bindweed, and they pretty much gave up. And so we spent a bit of time last year in covering it and trying to sort it out. and it'll stay this way until at least next spring. And in the meantime, I'll just hide behind these pretty flowers and we'll focus on these. And I have plenty going on in here, and the fact that the sedums are starting to bloom really indicates to me that the season is changing and autumn is definitely on its way. Inside the mesh here are some of the last blueberries, and the veggie mesh just protects them from birds coming and eating all of them. And there's plenty of other things in here as well. It's just so beautiful. These are blue malva that I'm growing for the first time, and they can be used as a natural colorant in skincare, apparently. So I'm going to be experimenting with making some soap with them. And then in the beds over here, I have a few things growing. I've got some celery down here at the end, beetroot, the blades of grass-looking stuff in the center. Those are leeks, and those are just planted. I planted them a week after I took the garlic out, but this patch over here has been growing for a while. And these are much larger, and leeks are what we'll be harvesting as a winter veg. Next to the leeks, I have a row of parsnips, and next to them there's some kale, there's some little beetroots that will have just enough time to mature. And then all of these are green onions, and this is a type that has a red bulb, and I bought the seed when we were on holiday in Portugal a couple of years ago, and it's still going strong. And this is flat-leaf parsley, and I have loads of flat-leaf parsley this year. Planted it everywhere practically. Not a bad harvest. We've got cabbage and chard, and we've got patty pan squash, French beans, runner beans. I traded a patty pan squash for these yellow courgettes, carrots, dahlias, an onion in the back, red love apples, and a bunch of berries. I'm leaving the allotment now and going home with quite a good harvest of squash and beans, of carrots, berries. This is truly the time of the year for pulling in those harvests. But I'm also going home with a little bit of worry because a storm is coming. These blue skies lie. It's going to be really wild and crazy come this time tomorrow. Lots of rain, lots of wind, and I am genuinely concerned about the bean structure and whether or not it will survive. But only time will tell, and if it does come down again, we'll see what we can do about it. But that's the nature of things, and the crops up here at the allotment have to be resilient. I'm not up here every day, unlike the home garden where I can just nip out and tidy things up when need be, tie things, support things, harvest when I need to. So on that note, let's head home and I'll show you what's growing at home. And we've got a greenhouse full of tomatoes, we've got cucumbers, squash, and all sorts back there. The sky is still blue here in the home garden, but not for long. The storm is going to hit later tonight. And let's start here on the patio. I have a lot of different veg growing in containers. Carrots absolutely spilling out of the pallet planter that we built earlier in the year. And we've actually been harvesting quite a few of them out of here. Thinnings mostly, but they are getting to pretty decent lengths. Let's pull one and see. Yeah, so they're good sized carrots for containers. So I would actually say that this pallet planter is a really good option for growing rooted plants like carrots. And the planter that I have here is completely filled with different herbs, including the flat-leaf parsley, stevia. This is a sugar replacement, very, very sweet leaves, and you can dry them or you can use them fresh. And I have other greens over here in the veggie pod. So there's coriander here in the front, and then 2 different types of radishes. This one I actually don't even know the name for, and I think I still call it the Thompson & Morgan experimental one. And then in the back I've got white icicle, which is just starting to plump up. And then I've sown some lettuce seeds back here, and this is kind of the last time that we have to sow seeds, at least for my climate. Over here in the patio planter, lots of different herbs and kale, of course. I've got loads of that this year. And I've sown radishes and rockets and a bit of lettuce into some of these smaller pots and containers as well. So this is wild mustard here, and this is wild rocket, so arugula. And then I've had to take some plants out of the planter just because they were damaged by the storm, but loads have survived. And I've even planted a tomato in a container, in a pot, and have it growing up the stairs here. And this is a type called Galena, and I got the seeds from the Real Seed Company, so they're a heritage variety. And I'm amazed that my tomatoes here at home haven't suffered from late blight, the ones that I have outdoors at least, like the potatoes at the allotments. And in fact, I have plenty more tomatoes up here. Before I get to the tomatoes, we're gonna walk through the rose arbor, and I've had a few people ask me, how is it doing? Well, it's doing great, and it's been blooming all summer long. It's still blooming. You can see flowers here. These probably will not be here this time tomorrow after the storm, so let's enjoy them. But they've actually climbed these rose bushes on either side. They've climbed all the way up to the top now, and you can see they're actually peeking up there from the very top. So I think that by next year this will be completely covered in roses, which is a lovely thought. Now in this squash bed, and there's an uchiki kuri squash right here. Isn't that gorgeous? In the squash bed, I planted some spare tomato plants just as an experiment to see how they would do. And they are peeking up from the centers there, and they're doing great. I'm so surprised. They haven't suffered any blight, and that is probably to do with the fact that not very many people around in this neighborhood have vegetable gardens and grow potatoes and tomatoes and have had blight. But they're doing wonderful, and I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Look here, loads of green tomatoes. And then if we peek in underneath here, there's some more of those patty pan squash ready to go, and even more different types of squash. So I've got that mashed potato and the baked potato squash growing further on in there. And I've also grown a pumpkin from someone's self-saved seed, and it was supposed to be a Tonda pumpkin. It doesn't look like that. It looks like some kind of a cross. And there's one gigantic squash there and another one down here. And I hope that they're tasty because they are taking up quite a lot of space. There's another squash further on back there and over there. They've just basically taken over this bed. I'm not complaining. That far raised bed is planted up with kale and also a row of carrots and some random bits and bobs inside. And then I've removed the peas from this bed, and in its place I've put some more rockets, I've put some spinach and radishes, and then behind are beetroot and kohlrabi. And the kohlrabi is getting pretty big. We have been eating some, but really should be harvesting some more. They are flavored like cabbages. There's a purple one in there. That one's quite small still. And you can see there's quite a lot of slug damage in this bed. And here in the home garden, we do have a problem with slugs. Let's have a peek inside the greenhouse. Ooh, look at those lovely apples. They're almost ready. And the strawberry pallet planter has filled in very nicely. And the plants have been putting out a few fruits, but it'll be next year that this really starts kicking into life. The greenhouse, isn't it lovely? Nice and warm in there at all times. This is the place where I grow the tomatoes, and I've got 4 of them here in the planter. And we have another Galena here. And then we have Gardener's Ecstasy, which is a small red cherry type. And then Tigerella, which is striped. So you can guess why it's named Tigerella. It's a gorgeous medium-sized tomato. And then another Gardener's Ecstasy over there. Now, I posted a picture recently of my tomato plants on Instagram, and I had some questions about the leaves curling in. This is just from heat. This isn't the aminopyralid herbicide. And if you do get tomato plants that have a few spots like that, if it's just some of the leaves, don't worry about it. If most of them are green and fine, just pick them off. I know it's not very scientific, but it's not something to really worry about if you're feeding your plants regularly. And also the wrinkling, it's not a big deal. As you can see, it's not impacting production. It's just more of a cosmetic thing. It's the way that the leaves protect themselves from warmth, or heat rather, and humidity. Moving over to this side of the greenhouse, I've just taken out one of the cucumber plants, and it was a bit of a rogue plant. It didn't grow true to seed from the seed packet, but it still put out these quite fat cucumbers that were light in color, and they were tasty, but it fell to powdery mildew. The one next to it is doing fine. Loads of cucumbers coming off of that. And then a friend gave me some melon seeds this year, and I've never grown melons. I've never really bothered because I've never had a huge greenhouse, and it's a French name. Let's have a look at the tag. So it's Petit Gris de Rennes, and it's from the Real Seed Company as well. So it's a heritage breed. It's actually a melon variety that's about 400 years old, which is quite a neat idea. And I just have it growing up here, soaking up as much sunshine as it can. And it'll be really interesting to see how they grow. Do you remember a few months ago when I built the herb spiral? It is heaving with plants. And one of the stars of this year's new plants is this. It's Korean mint. And it is so delicious. I think we'll continue to grow it. It tastes like a combination of, I would say, licorice and basil and maybe a little bit of coriander in there. I don't know. It's just such a unique flavor. So delicious. And the calendula that I've planted in here have taken over. It's crazy. I've taken a couple of the plants out, but I do like my calendula, as you know, so I'm letting it all kind of just bloom and flourish. And if any of the plants are suffering underneath, I do actually take action and remove plants. We've got some oregano in there and sage, and the fennel is just going crazy. And then this patch over here, I've just sown with various flower seeds, and all of the chamomile over there is self-sown. So it's from seed that was in compost that I've put over here. But I'm not complaining. I like chamomile as well. Lots and lots of uses. Well, that's it. You've seen the allotment garden, you've seen the home garden and everything growing there. It is a crazy mess of plants that are maturing, and some of them are coming down literally in the wind, or also coming down from blight or from powdery mildew or from other things. And I feel that at this time of the year, there's two real emotions that run through us gardeners. And the first one is excitement over the harvest, because the harvest can be huge and they can be wonderful and beautiful and delicious. And the other emotion is utter fatigue. Just tired of the garden, you're tired of all the hard work you've been doing, you see your potatoes come down with blight, you see cabbage white butterflies take out your brassicas. It is hard to garden, and this far into the season, if you're still going strong, good on you. But if you're not, keep your chin up, because there's always next year. Thank you so much for watching the gardens in August. Let me know how your garden is doing down below, and let me know how you're feeling. And I will see you next time for another video here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now. One last thing before you go. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to Lovely Greens and click that little bell icon so that you get notifications for when new videos are out.